Stay dandy, baby. Episode 16 of The Mandalorian makes up for any of the crappiness that came from the latest Star Wars sequel trilogy. I'm gonna go ahead and put up a big spoiler warning right now. If you haven't checked out the last 2 episodes of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I highly recommend that you go check them out now before you watch this review, because I'm gonna be talking about all of the juicy Star Wars goodness. Alright, you ready? Okay, here we go. First up, I'm going to do a super quick review of Chapter 15, The Believer, the 15th episode of the series, which features the return of Bill Space Boston Burr to the series as the character of Mayfeld. I really loved this episode. I loved his character, and I really hope he'll get to return at some point in the future. I really love that the series plays to the strengths of Bill Burr, that he's a quick, snappy, and super pissed off kind of guy, but he actually had a surprising amount of development in the episode. Essentially, Mando and his team needed his expertise to go into an Empire Remnant's base so that they could get the secret code which would allow them to find Moff Gideon. Of course, we already know that Mayfeld has a little bit of a history with the Empire, being a previous sharpshooter for them, and he's actually been involved in some key battles. They actually do a big name drop of Operation Cinder, which is awesome because you actually got to play through those events in Star Wars Battlefront 2. But here we get to see that there was a very nasty side to this conflict, and you get to see that Mayfeld has a lot of resentment for the Empire, to the point where he actually ends up meeting with this Imperial officer who ends up grilling him, and Mayfeld doesn't want to hear this at all. Having a tense conversation with this guy, he ends up just shooting him at point blank range, and they end up creating this big situation where Mayfeld and Mando are going to have to bust their way out of this massive Imperial base and do it with a lot of style. Luckily, they'll have a lot of help with characters like Cara Dune and Fennec Shand, not to mention Boba Fett, who's flying around in the frickin' Slave One, basically acting as the final last resort for saving all of them. The big thing about this episode is that throughout the entire thing, they're building up the fact that Mando is going to be taking off his helmet. It's something that Mayfeld has always wanted to see, and he really sort of like jabs him in the ribs a lot in this episode in order for that to happen. So you know it was going to happen, and eventually it does, because throughout the most of the episode, Mando is actually in a stormtrooper outfit, a heavy tank trooper outfit if you want to get really technical, and you can see that he's really uncomfortable during this situation. But when he's forced to go to this Imperial base, this mess hall, to get this specific code, he meets the same officer that Mayfeld kills, and he's forced to take off his helmet. And you can tell that while he is incredibly uncomfortable, he does manage to keep his cool the entire time, and you get to see that basically the entire world and culture that Mando believes in terms of the Mando Select that he belongs to, is starting to be shook from the frickin' surface. It's pretty big for his character, but it was Mayfeld who I think was really the big standout character of the show. I especially loved the ending sequence where he decides to give this like Liam Neeson Taken message to Moff Gideon, basically saying, "I'm coming to the ship, I'm getting Grogu, prepare to die." Love that episode, it was great, 5 out of 5 from me. But the final episode of the series, which essentially was just a giant 40-minute action scene, was nothing short of spectacular, and it might have been the most Star Wars fan service I have ever seen. And like I said, it sort of makes up for the sequel trilogy, which in my eyes is still complete and total hot garbage. But here, they give the fans what they want. You remember that one big scene in The Last Jedi where Luke Skywalker's talking to Rey and he's like, "What did you expect? That I was just gonna walk out and fight like 100 stormtroopers with my laser sword?" Yes, that's exactly what we wanted to see. And you know what? You get it in this episode. Luke freaking Skywalker in all of his deep fake gloriness shows up in this episode and absolutely just demolishes an entire army of dark troopers to save Mando and his team, and of course little baby Grogu. It's the biggest shocking surprise of the entire episode, and I really didn't think they were gonna go that far with it. I honestly thought that maybe we'd just see the return of Ahsoka to build up her character a little bit more for her eventual spin-off, which is coming out. But no, it's all Luke Skywalker, and I gotta say, this scene right here really just put a huge smile on my face. It makes up for the terrible characterization that Luke Skywalker had in the sequel trilogy, and basically taking us back to that scene in Return of the Jedi where he enters Jabba's palace and just starts choking out the Gamorrean guards and wearing that black cloak and looking like a badass. This is the Luke that we wanted to see, a super cool, super confident, and super powerful Jedi. And getting to see him just sort of cut through these freaking dark troopers like a hot knife through butter was nothing short of spectacular. It's akin to that scene in Rogue One where Vader takes out all of those rebels in just a giant massacre. That's basically what he's doing here, except this time, the shoe's on the other foot, the Empire is getting a lightsaber right up the dumper. But there's a lot more to this episode. Most of it actually involves Mando and his team as they make their way into Moff Gideon's ship so that they can kill everyone in sight, take out the Dark Troopers, and take back Grogu. And if you just wanted to see a lot of really cool people just fighting against stormtroopers, doing it in a really flashy and awesome way, well then you're gonna love this episode. As far as action scenes go, this might be some of the best from the entire franchise. Whether it's our 4 leading ladies who go in to just completely tear up Moff Gideon's forces. Cara Dune, Fennec Shand, freaking Bo-Katan and Reeves, they get in there and they just dominate. It's one of the highlights of the entire episode, but I really love the entrance where they come up with this plan where they have this Imperial shuttle, which looks like it's actually being chased by the Slave One, and they do that so that they can actually get directly inside of his ship, and Boba's in the Slave One, of course, and he ends up flying away, and I have to admit, I was very disappointed. I wanted to see more of Boba Fett. He did have a great scene in this episode where there's a lot of tense confrontation between him and Bo-Katan and her fellow Mandalorians, and he ends up getting in a scuffle with one of them, which is a really great scene. But man, I just wanted so much more Boba Fett after he was introduced in his titular episode. But still, I'm very satisfied with everything we're getting, and I know we're gonna get more and more on that later. But basically, Boba's essentially out for the rest of the episode, and it's up to Mando and his team to get right into it. And like I said, it's the 4 ladies who end up going against the stormtroopers, and then it's Mando who ends up going against one of the dark troopers. Just one of them, just barely stopping the door from allowing all of them to come out and just destroy them all, and it's a hard-fought battle. Essentially, he just brings out all of his tricks to take this thing down. It doesn't work. Luckily, he brought that Beskar spear with him, which is perfect because he ends up having a one-on-one fight with Moff Gideon, which is nothing short of spectacular. Moff Gideon, being the dirty bastard that he is, decides that he actually wants to trick Mando by basically saying, look, you take the child, I keep the Darksaber, we go our separate ways. But he stupidly tries to attack him with this, I guess not realizing that this thing is going to be deflected by the Beskar armor, and we get a nice little duel between the two characters, which is choreographed oh so well, and of course Mando does end up winning. The problem is, all of those Dark Troopers are getting ready to come back to the ship and raise all sorts of hell, and then suddenly it happens. We get that X-Wing that appears outside of Moff Gideon's ship, arrives there, and then it's Luke frickin' Skywalker. The build-up to it is great, as they don't really show him all at first. At first you're thinking maybe it could be Ahsoka, but the minute you see that green lightsaber come out with the black frickin' glove, you know that it's Luke Skywalker, and he just destroys these guys in such an amazing and epic display. And then he just arrives on the bridge of the ship, meeting Mando, Grogu, and all of his followers, as well as a defeated Moff Gideon, who tries to frickin' off himself, by the way. That doesn't work out well, and this is where he decides that he's going to take baby Grogu with him. And this is when we get what is arguably the most emotional moment from the entire series, and I felt more emotion from this couple of seconds of watching Mando have to give up baby Grogu to Luke Skywalker than I felt through the entirety of the sequel trilogy. This was a big moment. It's amazing that Pedro Pascal was able to bring out such emotion when he was essentially holding a freaking puppet in his hands. Not only that, but they just kept pouring the freaking fan service all over this episode. They're like, oh, by the way, here's R2-D2 as well. You get to see him interacting with Grogu. It's cute, it's adorable, it's awesome. And then Luke Skywalker just leaves with baby Grogu as he prepares to train him in the ways of the Jedi, which, you know, and the sequel trilogy shows that things are not going to end up all that well, and that makes me want to know, what's going to happen to Grogu? Is he going to be a part of the decimation of the Jedi? Will he be killed by Ben Solo? Will he leave? Will he reunite with Mando at some point? And I have a feeling that's actually what's going to happen. I think the future of the series is going to rely mostly on the fact that Mando now has possession of the Darksaber. He's going to have to decide how to do something that with Bo-Katan, because, of course, the Mandalorian rules say that if you want the Darksaber, you got to duel for it, which means they're going to have to fight each other, but that gets no resolution in this episode. So the future of the series is possibly going to hinge on what's going to happen to the future of planet Mandalore. But still, I hope they build up on that a lot more. I hope that eventually Grogu will return, maybe rejecting his ways of the Jedi because of how much he's actually sort of bonded with Mando over the course of these last 2 seasons. For all we know, he could be a foundling Mandalorian. He could be the first of like that species to actually be a part of that group, which I think would be all sorts of awesome. There's so many directions that the series can go in at this point, as effectively Mando's first big major mission outside of the side missions, which is to get baby Grogu either to his planet or to a very important Jedi, has been completed, and now we can move on to something else entirely. And it sent chills down my spine the entire time. But make sure to stay tuned for the post-credit scene of this episode, because you want to see more Boba Fett, right? Well, you do. We actually go back to the planet of Tatooine, and we go to Jabba's palace, which is still kicking, by the way, and after the death of Jabba, we get to see that his right-hand man, Bib Fortuna, has actually taken control of the organization, and just like Jabba himself, he's sort of fattened up quite a bit, and he's very shocked to suddenly see Boba Fett arrive, who decides to just shoot him point blank with a blaster, taking the throne for himself and effectively taking over Jabba's entire organization. Basically, the king is on the throne, baby, and I can't wait to see where his story's going next, and apparently it's coming next year, as they made the announcement at the end of this episode that apparently he is receiving some form of spin-off, which is known as the Book of Boba Fett. Whether this is a TV series, a movie, a comic book, a novel, anything remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is, Luke Skywalker's back, Boba Fett is alive, and Mando's story is going to continue, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go from here. So, what's the rundown on this episode of The Mandalorian? I loved this season. I cannot contain how much I loved this season. Absolutely everything about it was perfect, and for people who love old school Star Wars, this is the season for you. It definitely rests on a lot of the classic tropes and laurels and use of characters from classic Star Wars canon, but it didn't hurt my enjoyment of the season overall. It didn't bang you over the head too much. I still think the show has the ability to appeal to non-hardcore Star Wars fans, but even those who don't watch the movies are gonna know who Luke Skywalker is when he appears. That moment has a lot of weight behind it and is handled really well. As for the effects of using like deepfake over Mark Hamill and they amplified his voice and made it sound like he was younger, I'm not sure if I loved it or hated it. It didn't look that bad, but the fact of the matter is I practically had tears in my eyes while watching it, so it didn't even matter. I was just happy to finally see one of my childhood heroes live up to what I wanted him to be. Something that was completely absent from the sequel trilogy and has been brought to fruition in this episode. Freaking-tacular. The Luke Skywalker moment completely makes the episode, but again, it won't diminish anything else that the episode was trying to present, which was the amazing story of Mando trying to get Grogu back. And his battle with Moff Gideon was so freaking awesome. The choreography was so well done and fast-paced and unlike anything that I've seen from the rest of the series. You know, the minute you saw Mando with that Beskar spear walking on the ship, you're like, yeah, he's gonna fight Moff Gideon, who's gonna be using the Darksaber. But the fact that he actually takes that Darksaber back and Bo-Katan simply refuses to take it, and the fact that they have to duel, immediately lets you know that as soon as the next season begins, it's gonna get crazy. I mean, are they just going to immediately pick up from where the actual episode left off with them on the bridge of Moff Gideon's ship? Is Moff Gideon going to escape? Is he going to be sent to jail? Is this gonna somehow tie into some of the other elements of all the other spin-offs that are actually going to be coming later? There's so many questions and possibilities and hopes for the future. And with all the big spin-offs that they just announced, I'm excited to see where it's going to go, but really I'm more excited to see more of this character and his journey. And this entire season was really about Mando learning about who he truly is and how he carries himself as a Mandalorian. Does he hide his face? Does he not show his face? What Mandalorian sect is the true one? I mean, you gotta realize he ran into Bo-Katan's group. He met legendary bounty hunter Boba Fett. He met random citizens who used the Mandalorian armor. What he thinks of as a Mandalorian has been completely shaken up throughout the course of this entire season, and of what he sees of the world overall. Just the fact that he actually took off his helmet to say goodbye to Grogu is a massively powerful moment. You can really see the connection that he formed with this character and how he quite literally sees him as a son, and how heartbreaking it was to actually give him up. Especially because the entire point of these last couple episodes was just strictly on saving him, and as soon as he gets him back, he has to let him go yet again. It's a powerful moment, and like I said, it absolutely shook me to my core. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point in time, the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian are the true sequels to the future of the original Star Wars trilogy. They're where the story should have gone, focusing on side characters and every once in a while bringing in those legacy characters to remind you that they exist, they are here, and the world, the universe, is as it should be in the Star Wars galaxy. This episode was great, guys. I cannot praise it enough, and I can't talk about it enough. I even kind of want to make like a whole nother separate sub-series of Mandalorian videos. I know these aren't the most successful videos that I do, because everybody else is talking about Mandalorian, but I'm such a big Star Wars fan that I simply just have to talk about it, and what these episodes actually mean to me. To see my favorite characters from my childhood be brought back in such an epic fashion, and with elegance and with tender loving care, is something that I love so much. It's everything that was completely absent from these brand new films, and getting to see it here on the small screen every single week with attention and detail and good character development is the best thing I've ever seen from Star Wars. I might be jumping the gun here. I love the original Star Wars trilogy, but I think I love seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian even more. They've given me everything that I could possibly want from the series, and they give me everything that I want to see from Star Wars. There's more out there aside from the story of the Jedi. They should always still exist in the background and be the backbone of the entire Star Wars franchise, but it's these smaller characters that I think drive the entire freaking franchise. So yes, I loved both of these episodes, especially the finale. I give it my highest recommendation. Star Wars fans, it is mandatory viewing as far as I'm concerned. Excellent direction from Peyton Reed, great action scenes, everybody got a really cool moment. Boba Fett's getting a brand new spinoff. Luke Skywalker is officially here and kicking all sorts of ass. What more is there to say? But your thoughts may differ, and I would certainly love to hear all of them in the comment section below. If any of you did check out the latest couple episodes of Mandalorian, the big finale featuring Luke Skywalker, Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and his entire team, make sure to sound off about it in the comment section below if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you're hoping to see from the future of this series, not to mention all the spin-offs, the Book of Boba Fett, anything. Let's just talk all about it. Comment section below. I would love to get your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. If you did like this video, use your blaster, use your green lightsaber, hit that like button. Helps out these videos tremendously. I would also like to take this time to thank all of my patrons who've been making monthly donations through my Patreon page. Remember, first-time donators, I'll review an anime series of your choice, and I'll add your name to this list of super amazing people, the producers of Ace Guru. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and until next time, may the Force be with you. McClunky.